Hello everyone, I am Essen and my team member is Abdullah Ahmed for this major assignment of the course Engineering Thermodynamics. For this assignment, we were told to design a steam-based central heating system to heat up any typical room, and following were the design requirements for that. We had to include four major components in the system. The first one is the pump, which is required to regulate the flow of the substance within the system. Next, we had the boiler, which is responsible for converting the liquid water into superheated vapor, which is passed into the condenser or radiator via piping system. The piping can serve the purpose of changing the pressure or temperature depending upon our assumptions taken for it. Lastly, we had the condenser system, which is supposed to be mounted within the room and is responsible for radiating the heat within the room, increasing its temperature. In designing this system, we had to perform control volume or open system analysis of all the four major components to study energy rates transfers across them based on the assumptions that we took. Next, we had to analyze the system as a whole by performing control mass or closed system analysis to determine the overall efficiency of the system. Afterward, we had to perform after we had performed these analysis. The next step was to perform different graphical analysis to study the trend for different parameters like efficiency, heat radiated, power consumption, and cost analysis. So let me start off by showing how our complete system look like. Here you can see we have a pump connected to an electrical outlet and is radiating some heat as well into the surrounding. Next we have a boiler system which is also connected to an electrical outlet and performs electrical heating to convert the liquid into vapors. Next the whole system is interconnected with pipe that is modeled as an equivalent piping of 15 meter in length and zero point 0.1 meter in diameter. Next, we have a condenser mounted inside a room, which is 3 meter by 3 meter by 3 meter and is initially at 5 degrees Celsius. Moving on to the analysis of the system, first we have um, first we have a room that is initially assumed to be at a 5 degrees Celsius of temperature and a pressure of 1 atm. Next, we find the volume of this room based on the dimension we considered. We assume normal uh, air density in the room of 1.27 kilogram per meter cube, from which we calculated the total mass present within the room. The room is considered to be isolated, so there is no heat loss across it. Next, we check whether our assumed pressure and temperature for the ideal gas for whether the ideal gas holds for them or not. Since um, since we have the reduced temperature ratio greater than 2 and reduced pressure ratio less than 0.05, hence we can safely proceed to find the change in internal energy, considering it as an ideal gas. And in order to find the internal energy of this room going from 5 degrees Celsius to 30 degrees Celsius, for which we had assumed ideal gases, the internal energy will only depend upon the temperature. Since it is an ideal gas, thus we have find specific internal energies. Specific internal energies for going from 5 degrees Celsius to 30 degrees Celsius, and afterwards we had simply multiplied them with the mass of the air total mass of the air to calculate the total internal energy, and then plug these values in the first law to find a net change in internal energy. Since there is no work done by room due to its static condition, thus our total change in energy of the room will be the total change of the internal energy alone, which is calculated to be 614 joules, as you can see on the screen. Right, so I won't be diving deep into the calculations due to the time constraint for this presentation, but the details of our calculations can be studied within this document available. Right, good. So after analyzing the room, we can start an analysis on the subsystem. The first subsystem is the pump, which is assumed to be at steady state with one inlet and one outlet. There is no net change in the internal energy of the pump with respect to time, and the mass rate of inflow and outflow are also equal. Similarly, steady state implies that all the properties such as flow rate, heat transfer rate are averaged out and can be assumed to be a constant value. Next assumption is regarding the potential energy, which we have assumed to be zero since we are assuming that the whole heating system as well as the room is on ground level. For work rate, since we are supplying electrical energy to the pump, thus it will be negative. Similarly, the heat loss is assumed to be 5% of the magnitude of the heat transfer rate, which is a practical loss within normal pump functioning. Next, we assume there is no significant change in the substance pressure or substance pressure passing through the pump, and the pump is solely responsible for regulating the substance within the system. Now, most of the pumps are designed to be operating within the constant flow rate, so we have assumed an ideal volumetric flow rate of 0.1 meter cube per second. This is relatively high volumetric rate for substances like liquid water, but our justification here is that since the pump is operating at a ground level, and thus it has a higher volumetric rate. As the volumetric rate is a function of height or level at which the pump is regulating the substance at, as can be seen here for any general trend of pump functioning. We have as for this trend we have a decreasing flow rate with increasing height, and since we are operating at ground level, thus a high flow rate is a reasonable choice. Next, we had to consider the dimensions for the pump and inlet and outlet. Similarly, since the substance passing through the pump is compressed liquid, we can safely assume its specific volume to be approximately equal to specific volume of saturated liquid, water liquid at a given temperature, since the isobar basically clusters together on a TV curve in a supercooled region. Thus, it's a reasonable assumption for a pump with compressed liquid passing through it. Next, we had to assume the temperature um, and pressure change within the pump which caused the liquid caused on the liquid passing through it. Referring to that table, we found that water exists as compressed liquid at 21 degrees Celsius and 2500 kilopascals. Thus, we can assume these values for now to perform our calculations for changes in different parameters. With these assumptions defined, we then perform the first law analysis using the energy rate balance equation by first finding the inlet and outlet velocities with assumed dimension and volumetric flow rate. Since we also assume there is no significant change in the pressure and temperature, thus the enthalpy of our system will be zero. Substituting these values within the energy rate balance equation, um, we end up with the work rate of the pump, which is found to be 128 watts with a negative sign due to the electric work being done on the pump. Right, good. So the next system we have is the boiler, for which the steady state assumption is also assumed. Zero potential energy and negative work rate for rate assumptions are also taken with the same reasoning as for the pump. The additional assumption we have to take here is of the kinetic energy being zero, since boiler usually does not affect the kinetic energy of the system due to negligible changes in velocities. We also have assumed that there is no heat loss into the surrounding, and boiler utilizes the complete electrical energy to convert the liquid into vapors. This assumption might not be very practical but was taken to simplify our calculations. And for final assumption is regarding the change in temperature and pressure that boiler carries out on the substance to convert it from liquid to vapor. From the table, we assume the superheated vapor we saw that the superheated vapor can exist at 80 degrees Celsius and 6 kilopascals. Thus, we can take these values for now as our initial assumptions to proceed with the analysis. Next, we have performed the open system and energy rate balance analysis on the boiler the same way as for the pump, substituting our assumptions. So for substituting after substituting our assumption, the simplified expression looked as follow, with work rate being equal to the product of mass rate and enthalpy differences. To calculate the enthalpy differences, we simply refer to the superheated table of water vapor and map the corresponding enthalpies for the assumed temperature and pressure. And upon substituting these values, the work rate for the pump that we got was about 256.37 kilowatt with a negative sign again, since electric work is being done on the boiler. Right. So the next analysis we performed was on the condenser or radiator, for which the steady state kinetic energy being zero, potential energy being zero were also taken with the same reasoning as for the boiler and the pump. The additional assumption that we took here is regarding the zero work rate, since there is no electric work being done on the condenser and no work is being driven from it either. Lastly, we had to select the material for condenser. Most of the condensers uh, within the most of the condenser we have most of the condensers are basically made up of copper due to its conductivity properties. Thus we selected the same material. Copper has emissivity of 0.78 and thermal conductivity of 385 watt per meter Kelvin. Moving on to the analysis of the condenser, we have made a few assumptions regarding the dimensions of the slab, diameter of the internal piping and its length, and then we have proceeded with the calculation. The details of these calculations again can be studied within the document, but I will be only briefing for now. So there are two heat transfer mode that we have in the condenser. The first one is through the conduction from the pipe into the slab, in which the steam passing through the pipe conducts the heat into the slab of the radiator, and the next heat transfer occurs between the slab of the radiator and the surrounding environment, which is assumed to be done by radiation. As we have calculated both the rates of for radiation and conduction using the assumed values for dimensions, conductivity, emissivity, and initial and final temperature to be 5 and 30 degrees Celsius. We have also assumed that the temperature varies linearly for the conduction to simplify the expression further and perform our analysis. Once we have the expression for conduction and radiation, we can simply equate them to find the temperature of the radiator, which is the only unknown in the equation, which is the only unknown equation, since we already know all the other parameters and the temperature of a gas as well as that of the environment. Substituting the radiated temperature into the expression for radiation rate, we can find the value of our rate for radiation, which is this case is found to be 295 watts. Lastly, we have the piping system with similar assumptions for steady state, potential energy, kinetic energy, and the work being done. Similarly, we are assuming the pipe does not radiate any heat and have the same area for inlet and outlet. Thus, there is no significant change in pressure, volume, or temperature of the substance. Substituting our assumptions into energy rate balance expression, we end up with input enthalpy to be equals to output enthalpy, which is found using the table for superheated vapor at 80 degrees Celsius and 6 kilopascal as assumed earlier. Right, so this is it on my part, and the details of the calculation again can be found within the document. For now, I have only briefed and skimmed over them. So please feel free to go through the document for the details of our analysis. Now, Abdullah will continue with the control mass first law analysis of the system.
Okay, so thank you, Essen. Next, we had to perform control mass first law analysis of system to determine its efficiency. The first part of which was to analyze the change in internal energy, which we established and covered earlier in the presentation. Therefore, now we need to establish a definition for the efficiency of the system. So, you know, efficiency of a system can be defined as the ratio of desired output to required input. With the definition and context, we realize the change in room temperature is what we desire from the system, which is done so by the heat rate supplied by the condenser. And likewise, to achieve this task, we have to connect boiler and pump with electricity outlets. Hence, we can determine our efficiency by taking the ratio of heat rate of condenser to the total electrical power supplied to the system. So substituting the value, we realize that our efficiency is coming to a very extremely poor range. So that we won't be even able to consider it as a practical system. Thus, as next step, we started looking at what parameter was responsible for such a poor efficiency performance, and we traced back to some assumptions that we did regarding each system that eventually resulted in this poor efficiency. Assumptions regarding heat losses, power consumption, temperature and pressure assumptions, substances, enthalpy calculation, modeling of piping and radiator were some of the many factors that we identified as the factors eventually resulting for this poor efficiency. Therefore, we can improve our efficiency by reconsidering more reasonable parameters for our analysis. But for now, we need to proceed with this to further perform closed mass analysis of our complete system to determine the total change in the internal energy of the system. So to brief, we considered the network and the net heat rated for subsystems and used the first law to calculate the net rate of internal energy of the system, which turned out to be 551.196 kilowatt. So now moving on to the graphical analysis. First graphical analysis we had to perform was for efficiency of system as we heat it to different temperatures. For that, we simply used the efficiency definition statement earlier with only difference of using energy magnitudes rather than the rates. With further simplifications that can be studied in our document, we came up with the final expression of efficiency as function of time, which can be seen over here. The ratio will be net heat transfer into the room to work rate of boiler and pump being multiplied with time. Next, we simply constructed the table to calculate net changes in room energy for different changes in temperature and used it in the efficiency formula to construct this graph over here. In this graph, we can observe that lower the temperature rise, higher the efficiency decay with respect to the time. So if we lower down the temperature, we'll be getting more efficiency or a more efficient system. So our next graph was for power consumption for pump for raising the temperature of room to different values, for which we needed to first calculate the time to raise the temperature to a certain value, the analysis of which is discussed later. But for now, once we had the time for each case, we simply multiplied the respective values of for pump work rate that we found previously, and then we found the different values for power consumption as can be seen in the table. Next, we simplified. Next, we simplify a plotted graph from this table constructed. Similarly, we repeated the whole procedure for the boiler with only difference of work rate equation and plotted a graph as it can be seen. The next analysis was for the total heat radiated for different cases. Once we had time period for different cases, we multiplied those time periods with the heat rate of the radiator and calculated the total heat radiated and plotted a graph accordingly. Now for a time period calculation, the values of which were used in the previous analysis, we simply used the radiator's total heat radiated and equated it to the corresponding product of time and heat rate. Since the power is defined as the rate of work, the expression that we came up with for time was the ratio of net heat radiated into the room to constant 295, which was the heat rate value for the condenser. Thus, we simply substituted net change of energy for different cases and found time for raising temperature and plotted the graphs accordingly. Lastly, we had to analyze the cost for each case, for which we used the data from the K Electric website and used the cost 1.497 pkr per kilowatt hour, which is the most recent rate, which could be verified from the website. And then we simply found out the total cost by finding the total energy consumed in the given time frame that we calculated previously and plotted it in the graph as well. And we were also required to draw the PV curve for our system, which we did by considering the temperatures, the final temperature and the initial temperature and pressures of our system from our analysis, and then simply came up with the curve. Right, so this is for our presentation. We have also added the references for the assumption values and data used. The mathematical details of our analysis can be found in the document again. And with that, I would like to end the presentation. Thank you for the patient listening, and please comment out any questions for further clarification. Thank you.